I changed my presentation early this morning because I felt that there was certain things not being said. There were certain assumptions about America, about American democracy, about the American dream that was being talked about day before yesterday and today. And it disturbed me, and I was really pleased that Deborah started by using certain dirty words which have become disenfranchised in the progressive community, like racism. That word has been rather absent in the discussions in the last couple of days. So, Deborah, thank you for bringing that right to the center. Because if indeed racism exists structurally, I'm not talking about people's attitudes. I always make a distinction between racialism and racism. I don't mind what people think of me if they don't like the smell of my garlic or the color of my skin. I don't care a shit. But you stop my children going to school safely. You stop us getting justice when we're attacked and we are then arrested for being attacked. If there is no safety, then that's racism. And I think one of the problems I have often when I come to America is that the corollary of racism on an international scale is another dirty word. And that's imperialism. And that's really what I want to try to talk about. Because we've heard a lot about American democracy and the American dream, of which people are, rightly proud. But how American democracy appears to Americans and how American democracy appears to us in Africa are two very different things. And therefore the question is this really democracy that you are living? If its backside, as it were, is one in which it renders huge parts of the world into a destructive experience. To most of us, most of us in Africa, America has a cruel face. It's seen as a voracious exploiter of our resources, of our people, of our freedoms. America is experienced as a military might. The fight for oil, which is so necessary for the American way of life, the cars, the highways, that 25% of that comes from Africa. 25% of America's oil comes from Africa. It's a huge resource which is not paid for the value it is actually given. And military might is used, or the threat of military presence is used, as with the presence of AFRICOM across Africa. So for us, American democracy seems to be something that is you enjoy at our expense, that your freedoms appear to be premised on the denial of freedoms for most of the population of the world. America has a long history of undermining Africa's attempts to build its own democracy, to elect its own governments, to elect those who represents its views. The the continent is littered with histories of coups d'etat supported by the Americans, by the use of assassination. Patrice Lumumba, for example, is a classic example of a killing of a democratically elected individual, replaced by Mobutu, who then helped the Americans tear the continent apart. War is usually defined as an event involving the waging of armed conflict against an enemy, during which people are killed, maimed, displaced. But what does one call a condition in which every year millions are killed, raped, humiliated, starved, and subject to slow death from preventable diseases, in which millions lose access to land and livelihood, and in which violence, imprisonment, torture, and displacement are so common as to become normalized? What do we call that condition in which the economic, social, and cultural domains are commanded by external forces through, albeit local collaborators, against the interest of a local population? That is war by any other name. Each year, over 1 million African babies die within their first month of life, and as many as 500,000 African babies die within 24 hours of being born. Women are 100 times more likely to die in childbirth in Africa as in the West. It's estimated that there will be something like 2.5 million maternal deaths, 2.5 million child deaths, and 49 million maternal disabilities in the region over the next 10 years. Malaria kills a child every 30 seconds and is the single leading cause of death of children under 5. It's preventable. A child in Africa is 520 times more likely to die from diarrheal disease than a child from Europe or US. Yesterday we heard Stephen Lewis speak very dramatically about sexual violence associated often with conflict. But even in non-war zones, rape has reached pandemic proportions. A woman is raped every 17 seconds in South Africa, that bastion of so-called democracy in Africa. And in that country, a woman has a greater chance of being raped than of learning to read. I could go on. I'm sure you know that picture well.